All right, and we're here with our Positive Influence show. We're going to get started here in just a moment. Want to make sure everything's coming up correctly on my end with everything as well. We're going to be having a great guest on here today talking about a very cool IP that he's got going on that I to chatting with him about. As long as you are here watching this thing, please remember to go ahead and subscribe and share today. We want to get those shares out there as soon as possible so you can get more eyes as you possibly can involved on this project going on. Whenever the funding they are time based, make sure and get it on there as we possibly can. So speaking of eyes on a project, let's go ahead and bring some more eyes onto the show right now. We're going to bring on Greg and Dylan are going to join me.
Hola.
Welcome to the
show. Hey, thanks for having us.
We're the first time multilingual. This is great. No, I want to thank y'all for being on the show, for having given the pace to get on. We've had some hiccups up to this point. We've had some storms that have hit, kept us from getting here. And we have another one rolling through at the time of doing this as well. So they really love having you on here. So we're going to have a really great show on this one, because if it's the end of the world tomorrow, I want to make sure I have the best show on here. So go ahead and let them know who you are, what you do, and where to find you.
You want to go first?
You go first.
All right. I'm Greg Moquin, one half of Seernova Comics. I'm writer, creator of all of our comics. We currently have a comic on Kickstarter called Ink 1 and 2. And it's basically about a superhero, tattoo artist turned superhero, and he returns home to serve some justice to this creepy cult.
Cool. And I'm Dylan, the other half of Seernova Comics, and basically I help with a lot of the technical stuff, and I tend to edit a lot of the comics. So I built the platform that we host all our comics on, along with other creators who are on our platform. And I solve bugs. I smash them. There's the camera. I smashed the bugs.
That is awesome. Before we get into talking about ink, because we're definitely going to be discussing about that a little bit, we're going to get to know y'all just a little bit on this one as well. One thing that I have is y'all do help you do your own podcast, and you get on there and you talk to other people and get things going on there. How long have y'all been doing that, and how far has your reach gotten on there to get more eyes involved on the indies and on the projects going on?
I'm trying to remember where we did start. We're on episode 127. We used to be weekly. Now we do bi-weekly, so it's got to be at least 2 years, but I feel like it's been going longer than that.
It's been since, I think, July of 2019. So
there you go. That seems more accurate.
Yeah, because we had Todd Rayner as the first guest. So he's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And we
now, I mean, you said you've gone to bi-week now. Is that because of time, or what is it?
Yeah, because of time.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, there's a little delay. Dylan's busy with life and just other things, and like 6 businesses. And then I'm busy because I have a house, so I have to kind of do some stuff around here. My girlfriend can't just do everything. And then, that's basically why we turned it to bi-weekly.
Yeah, probably that.
I understand the whole adult thing never gets 5 stars.
yeah, that probably that, and the fact that we're trying to do some additional stuff with our company as well, which is also eating up a lot of time, and so that's another reason why we dialed back on the podcast.
Awesome. Now, how are you doing locations for these?
What was that?
How long have you been publishing through the band?
Since 2019. Ink, the first issue, was originally like the first comic that we released back then, and then took a couple tries. Yeah, and then it took a couple tries to release the flagship title. There's some hiccups with artists and other things, so yeah.
it seems like sometimes there's some hiccups in there and some obstacles that you come across. What's one of the biggest obstacles in the way that you've had to overcome that and you've learned from moving forward?
One of the biggest obstacles? Well, I guess like one of the big ones would just be making sure you thoroughly vet an artist before you work with them. So we had some artists who seemed pretty good, and then we found out they were utilizing basically they were utilizing imagery or like even clip art to like basically put stuff together. And so we found out that they weren't necessarily drawing the comics. And so, yeah, you got to be careful where you go for that. We've had other ones that are really good, but because they're so involved in the artist world, like they have other bigger clients. And I don't think that you should prioritize clients based on pay. You should probably prioritize them based on time that you receive them or based on original agreements. But, you know, it's understandable, like when you're working with artists that, you know, if somebody of Image, DC, Marvel level are coming for you, like, you know, you're going to prioritize them just naturally. So you got to make sure that whatever artist you work with, they're going to be dedicated, they're going to be quality, and they're going to stick with you for the long run, because if not, you're going to end up having a couple of comics that don't look like they match.
Yes. And I can definitely see where that could happen with that. And you're mentioning, of course, we're talking about with Ink being your first comic that you did. And you did that starting in 2019, and now you've gone up here. What is one of the biggest things you've learned in evolving the brand and moving it forward and building it up for years?
Probably Kickstarter. Probably like how much we use it.
Probably just Kickstarter. There's a bunch of other stuff, but that's like a main one. We went from me launching Indiegogo first, and that completely just failing with $219 from my mom. And then there's and then there was a goal for like $10,000, and we had like a bunch of different things for this first Kickstarter that we did, and it was just all over the place. Some people were like, "What is this for?" And we're like, "Oh, it's basically for this." They're like, "Well, no, don't do that." So then I listened to Dylan finally and read this book called The $100 Startup, and they have like a checklist of like launching and like what you're supposed to do, and it's mostly like launching like a
Products,
like a product or whatever. But I figured out a way to make my own list for crowdfunding. So I have like a 21-step process of what I do every single time before I launch a Kickstarter. Some of the steps in the beginning I've already done, because, you know, like 1 to 5 is building an audience and mailing list, and we kind of have that.
Well, we have that and like continue to, but yeah. It's like we I think I think it's in the post. It's a blog on our site in case anyone wants to check it out. If you go to any part of our site and search for 21, it's one of like the top 5 articles that'll come up. But basically, step number 1 is like, if you don't have 1,000 Instagram followers, like start over. Like don't try to. I actually just was consulting a client who wanted to run a crowdfunding campaign for a business, and I'm like, you realize like the difference between a venture capitalist is that you sell one person and they give you a lot of money. When you're crowdfunding, you have to sell tons of people to give you a little bit of money. And so you have to realize that that has to be personal. And if you don't do that, you're not going to get the traction required to get the social proof needed for random people to donate, right? Like random people donate to projects because they look cool, but they don't do that if it's got $0 in funding, right? They do it because your friends, your family, your close connections, right? All of those, maybe coworkers, right? If you're, in the 9 to 5, right? Like people, are the ones that get that little ball rolling so that the snowball can build. But like that's a huge deal, is if you don't have an email list, a social following, a site with a lot of traffic to it, like you need some source of attention like already that you own and you have access to before you can start trying to request money from the internet.
Exactly, because it seems like there's a lot of people that they'll get involved in crowdfunding just to get their name out there in the very beginning, and that's kind of the wrong way of doing it. It's going backwards. That you can have your name, at both your IP and your name, where they meld together. As you launch, people are aware what's going on. You can have a bunch of followers under your name, you can have a bunch of followers IP, or both, but you need to somewhere in there so as soon as you launch, they know what's on. Otherwise, they have no clue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is awesome. The 21 steps. I'd be interested in looking to see exactly what that is. The project that I am working on to be launching the end of May, my first ever book. So I am absolutely terrified. I'm not going to lie, but I'm excited about it too. If I sat up here and said I was only excited and I'm just energetic and ready to do this, then you'd know that I'm just for sure full of crap, no idea what I'm doing. I'm terrified. But I'm looking forward to it. And the cool thing is that whenever we share, what we do, and we share the ideas with each other, it really helps to build the entirety of the indie. And what I like to call, people have called, well, someone in particular called me the voice of the indies, and I declined to be called the voice of the indies because of my shows and stuff. The voice of the indies is a conglomerate. The way I see it is, the voice of the indies is the conglomerate of everybody, kind of working together to get that voice out there together. And I can definitely see y'all doing what you're doing over there at Silver with the podcast, with information that you're sharing there. That is definitely helpful with that. Definitely got to tell you that I've got mad respect for you for doing that and for continuing to do that as well.
Made me think of Ermac from Mortal Kombat. We are many, you are one. But I definitely agree. And also, we can send you that link for that article too, if you want to put it in like the description or something, in case somebody wants to check that out.
Oh, absolutely. Of course, we're here. We're talking to y'all about how you became creators, what kind of get that passion for, what's kind of pushing you, and what you've learned. Now we're going to give a share screen on this real quick, and we're going to show off some of the artwork behind while we're talking on this, because we are talking about Ink 1 and 2 on the campaign right now. So it is for Ink 2, but of course, Ink 1 is in there. Is it a remastered, or did you come back in with the same one?
Oh, no, it's just the regular first issue from 2019. The only way people got that the first time around was it was a stretch goal on one of our Kickstarters. I never did a Kickstarter for that yet. So technically it's the first Kickstarter for Ink. So
yeah, the first Kickstarter we did was for the Seer Chronicles, right? And then that was a stretch goal we reached, and then we released that, but it just got completed before it, I think, which is why technically it's our first comic. So our first comic goal was the Seer Chronicles, since that's our flagship comic. But basically what happened was we reached our stretch goal, and the first Ink is very short compared to the first Seer Chronicles, which is quite long. And so because of that, we just happened to complete that one first. And because we reached the stretch goal, that was the only way. Yeah, like Greg was saying, it's the only way people could get it was through that campaign back then. There wasn't another place to get it.
Now, go ahead and give us the general synopsis of what Ink is about, without giving away too much information, of course, and let people know what they're getting into with this. And then we've got a few questions to go along with that as well.
Yeah. So basically, the story of Ink starts off with a normal guy going about his life. He's a tattoo artist, and basically, in the first comic, has this nightmare where something comes to him in his sleep, and the very next day he's out headed to work, and that nightmare came true, and it was this what he later finds out will be a gift bestowed upon him. But he was forced to take action within 72 hours, or he would perish. And basically, that's Ink 1, this pilot episode, essentially, where you don't really see much of what's going on. You don't know what's going to happen, but it's a very quick read, and it's very fast-paced, and it basically gets you right up to this interesting climax. But the fun thing was, we kind of built it right up to this part where something's going to happen, but we just didn't do anything after that. And so one piece of advice we got from Ed Jowett. I forgot what's his main comic.
A couple.
I know, yeah. So, but he's a pretty big indie creator, and basically, one thing that he mentioned that we took to heart was most people that fell in love with the classic comics, like the originals, like the Superman, the action comics, and detective comics. People forget that we didn't know it was Bruce Wayne or Clark Kent. It was just a super being and a detective with gadgets, right? And that's what we fell in love with first was the superhero-ness. And so a lot of people who are in the indie space keep creating these pilot comics and they don't really get to the cool part. And so that's something that he told us. And we're like, yeah, that's true. Like we're so fascinated by our comics, but we only because we know where it's going, but no one else knows where it's going. So the cool thing was when we decided to write Ink 2, like we know the whole trajectory of what he's going to be doing, but we decided to jump years into the future, coincidentally years after we released it. And basically the whole idea is that he's right in the middle of the action now, right when he's interesting. And then later when people are curious how he actually went and got these powers that he has, we're going to go back and do the basically from the original pilot episode on, basically like Ink Origins kind of thing.
Nice, very nice. Now I know that one thing is with the villains that we're seeing in here. You can say the name if you want to. I think it's the coolest name in the world to come up with because it fits with who they are. But it's definitely something that kind of puts you on edge because this brings the whole comics are there to kind of take you out of the reality and take you into the fantasy world. Reading that and getting involved in that. And this actually gives it that feel of you never know what's going to be happening, who's going to break into whose house, what's going on with that, and what their intentions are. And that's what's the whole thing about this is it's a psychological thriller on top of a sci-fi, fantasy, action, whatever. It's got the psychological thriller in there.
It's funny. I wonder if that was like unintentional. That's like my fiance watches a lot. Like she likes to watch a lot of horror stuff, and you kind of run out of the classic horror. But the one thing there's a ton of are these psychological horrors. There's tons of them on Netflix. So I've gone through like I've probably watched I don't know like 200 different psychological horror films over the last couple of years. And when Greg and I were going through this, basically like we kind of had this outline of like, oh, there's going to be this bad organization, but like, what are they about? Like, so we can say the name. Basically, we were trying to think of something clever, and I think I don't remember what sparked the idea, but eventually we came across this name that just we didn't hear about it anywhere else in the sense of like it didn't seem like it was used anywhere. But we came up with this blank slated mask, and we call them the Faceless. And I won't go too in depth, but basically there's a collection of masks, which you can see on the variant covers we have available. But down the line, you're going to find out that there's purpose behind each one of those masks. So it's kind of we built like a whole lore behind this cult essentially, and it was very exciting. But you're right, I do like that. It's like kind of got a psychological thriller where like just stuff's happening. You're like, I don't know what's going on.
And then, of course, I mean, the artwork and everything that's involved in here is absolutely gorgeous that's involved. Let me go ahead and scroll in just a little bit on this. I mean, if you love red, the color red, it shows up in here quite often, which is awesome. Usually kind of, the smatterings across the wall and everything. It's got that very 1800s, 1700s feel, around there. It's some gorgeous artwork that you've got in here and the way that you've got it set up and the way that the panels flow. Pun intended, and it's got a lot of feel to it going through here. So how did you come up with the idea to not only create it where you've got this very bad organization that's dealing with things and how they're doing this, but how they're choosing their targets and how they're doing things in there and how you're creating the story going from that? Because I know choosing their targets is a big thing about the story, of which I don't want to tell too much because I don't want to give away anything on here. But there is something big behind that as well. So everything has a tie-in, basically.
So I'll say that. So the target is actually Shane, the Ink. He's actually like the main target of them, and I brought it back to like Spider-Man. Like obviously they got to go after people like what Spider-Man loves. Like who does he love? Something like Mary Jane or something. So there's this girl named Brittany that's actually taken in the beginning of the comic, and he like cares for her, but they don't like know that completely. She's just a neighbor. But eventually you're gonna like figure out like, oh, they're actually more close than you think they are. And I wanted to add that into the story because a lot of people like connect with that and like from Spider-Man and just other comics.
I didn't even realize too that they're neighbors and they Peter Parker and Mary Jane are neighbors as well. That's kind of funny. I didn't think that far through it. But it's cool you mentioned the red too. Something interesting that we have as a theme built throughout our comics is that we unintentionally started doing something and then we decided to actually build it out and keep it this way. But essentially, throughout all the comics, there's colors that mean various things. And you can notice that Ink here, his eyes glowing purple. And it's basically very much like, what is it called? The Jedi sword lightsabers. Like we kind of have it where there's another comic we have called Scales, which is part of the same universe. And you can see it right on the front cover. There's this green glowing energy. And that's basically this energy of good and protecting. And essentially, all the evil that is in our world is wrapped around this energy of red. And Ink, this is actually a little more in depth than we've really shared before, but basically, he's kind of this neutral, gatekeeper. He's meant to like just be the barrier between the two. And that's what's kind of cool is like he's meant to just keep them separated, not necessarily get involved unless it's necessary.
And it's very cool how you do that and how the colors work in there because it's not overly predominant, with the red or even with the purple, but you can definitely tell whenever the mood shifts and it actually has to go into that direction. Whenever Ink has to go into protective mode or whatever, it's like the entire page is just splashed purple, which is absolutely gorgeous. And then it goes back to normal right afterwards, and you're kind of looking, going, wait a minute, let me go back to the page and see what I missed on here. What's going on? And you get that feel for it moving forward. So now every time you feel emotion in there, you can almost see that color before you go to the next page. It's very cool how you did that.
Yeah, that's definitely a big shout out to both our artist and our colorist. Like our artist did a really good job laying out the scenes, both lighter and darker. And the colorist, February, like we work with him on every comic we have, except for I think one that's just because it's a very monotone coloring. But for all of our other comics, he's absolutely phenomenal with how he lays these colors down.
And again, I mean, this is what we're talking about here. Whenever you get into where something happens and his powers are kind of enacted, this is what happens. This is the coloring that you see on there because that tells you that there's definitely some kind of emotion that has been triggered in this very heavily. I'm not going to go into detail exactly what this was or what happened here. That's a spoiler right there. We don't do spoiler alerts. If you want to know, I'm telling you right now, all you got to do is go to the campaign and get it yourself, and it is well worth it. But this is absolutely gorgeous, the way that it's set up, the way that it's presented. The entire story is very much a page-turner going through here. Just to let everyone know my views, as far as like reviewing this thing, the panels are absolutely gorgeous. Everyone knows I don't like panels that are just the standard 9 squares, old school Marvel, whenever you just go through there and it's the same page, same thing, and it's just different things in the panels. This doesn't have that feel at all. In fact, there are times whenever you feel like you can almost dip your hand into some of these things because there's so much 3D effect to it, which is really cool. I got to tell you that this thing has a lot of energy to this book that a lot of people are going to really pick up on as they go through with the two in this series here. And it's got a lot of emotion that's involved in there, which is depicted by the coloring. So this is not a series that by any means on here, and it is available on campaign right now, and we're going to be doing that here very shortly as well. But how big of a series are we talking about here? Is this going?
So this first plot arc is 3 issues, and then it kind of leaves everybody on a cliffhanger, and you're going to be on a cliffhanger for a couple of years because money. And Then there's another plot arc that I don't know. I think it's like 3-4 issues of that one. And that's where like
scales or
I mean for Ink.
I mean after this.
Yeah.
Gotcha, yeah.
So after the 3, there's a team up book, but like it takes a little while to get to that. And then after that, there's going to be like 3 or 4 issues for the next plot arc, and that's literally the events after the team up book. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be at least like 2 or 3 more plot arcs. But on the second plot arc is where you're going to actually see like a trials and stuff he had to go through to get the tattoos that he has. So I can't wait for that.
Very cool. And of course, this is some of the stuff that's available as far as the campaign is concerned. I've got to go ahead and point this out right now. The marketing for your covers on here is absolutely insanely perfect on here, because this is one of those games where you go through going, something doesn't match. Where is it? And you really pay attention to it. And by the time you paid enough attention to it, you're like, you know what? I've stayed here long enough. I'm going to go ahead and grab one of these while I'm here. You know what? I got to go ahead and get all 5 because I need the different ones on here. And for those of us that have OCD, you've really screwed us over. So we have to have it.
Yeah, there was a person that messaged me and they're like, I don't see a different. That's the same cover. And I'm like, it's not the same cover. And then they looked it over again. They're like, oh, I'm dumb. And I'm like, nah, it's good.
Yeah, it was kind of funny actually, just because like the intention of making all of them wasn't the original goal. What happened was one of the things that we preached this to other people, similar to how I mentioned this story was created because we wanted to leap forward into the action with this character. We don't want you to be stuck in limbo waiting for the character to become cool. We want to jump into that action. So one of the other things we wanted to do as well to kind of like pull from that valuable resource, these old comics, like the reason why people got hooked into them. And so we actually looked through a series of old classic covers, and that's where we're like, all right, let's try to find one we like. We went through a series of them, and I think we actually found an old Power Ranger cover that had the split face between the bad guy and the good guy, and that's kind of how we came up with the idea for this cover. We sent that like the mock-up, like we sent the mock-up of that to our artist, and he came back with this, and we were like, yep, yeah, that's exactly what we were looking for. And the fact that we happen to have these the faceless, these masks of different meanings, like it just worked out perfectly to be able to create these variant covers that kind of like it's cool because once you'll find out later like what they're actually for, and having them is like a really cool thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, but it is absolutely gorgeous. The covers are beautiful on there, and I mean, it is one of those things that if you're gonna grab one of those the half face covers on there, it's almost like you have to get it in the set. You can't just get the one because it feels like it's an incomplete collection at that point. And we all know we're collectors, so that's kind of what you have to look into there. But it is gorgeous on there, and the book itself. I mean, like I said, the storyline is incredibly enthralling and just drags you into it and carries you all the way through. It is definitely not one that you want to pass up. Everyone who's watching this, you want to get over there to the campaign, find out what's going on. We're going to get to that and give them full screen on this here in just a moment. But one thing I want to bring up before we get to that point, and they talk about the campaign and tell you why you need to get over there and support that right now. We've already mentioned a couple of other titles that you have that you've presented under Seernova. One of which I want to present because it was my first introduction to y'all as far as getting it off the campaign and everything too, was Mittens. So to the point where actually we named one of our cats Mittens. So I'm sorry, but yes, it went that far.
Oh,
that's awesome.
Have not launched her into space yet, but the day's young. But you've got a wide range, of different titles that you have available and stuff that's on there. Go ahead and let us know some of the other titles that you have and some of the IPs you've been working with.
Yeah, you can do it.
Mm-hmm. So there's our flagship title, which is the Seer Chronicles. That's like where everything began. I wrote it back in like 2014. It took me like 3 years to complete writing it as a novel base. So it was over 1,200 pages. Then I had to split that into multiple things. I found Dylan. He helped me split it more from a storyboard format into actual comic scripts. And then we went from there. Ink, obviously. Then we have another solo series called Scales. The second issue is going to come out after the third issue of Ink. That's like our Iron Fist kind of character because he has kind of like a, except, you know, if we had a Netflix series, it wouldn't be trash. Then we have another series that I just got an artist for literally today, but he's not like going to start on it yet. But that's called Brett Torts. We're probably going to have like a different name for that, but that's like the guy's actual name. And he's like he's not an amateur boxer. He's a washed up boxer. He used to be like a champion or whatever, and then, you know, he kind of like had too much fun. Then he kind of becomes like a corporate superhero, but he doesn't know the corporation's bad. So it's kind of like The Boys, but it's not The Boys.
Okay.
And that one actually is like digs deep into some stuff. Like the dude's like depressed, like very depressed, and yeah, it like hits there.
I was gonna say too, all of these two are all tied within the same universe. And actually, it's funny because the one that you got introduced to is also tied into our universe, but just not in a way that you'll know for quite some time. But
Okay.
I'm trying to think about, we probably only mentioned that like twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah, we haven't mentioned that a lot. So that, well, yeah, anybody who watch this, basically they're all within the same universe. Like our Earth, we have a name for it, Venetia, which we even have a video game that's like in, you know, that we've been developing for several years. It's basically on hold at the moment, but we're building an entire like Earth. So like it's total different continents, our own cities, all this stuff, and our own solar system. So we have our own little universe we're building out, and all of these comics are a part of that.
Yeah. So there's Mittens, obviously, like you said.
Oh, I was gonna say, and then there's the two anthologies that we've also worked with. So we're not the only creators on there because it's an anthology. We work with a lot of creators, but just being one of the people that have been around for a while, we ended up becoming the publishers for that. So the Chronicles of Horror 1 and the Chronicles of Horror 2. Yeah,
I have those too.
Yeah, and
cool.
yeah, there's gonna be a third one of that. It was supposed to come out this year, but there's money, so I told them to kind of like just hold out on that. I said next year, but I don't know still, so I might have to like drag it out another year, which they're probably going to be like bummed out about that. But I told them I'll have an update early April about all of that. Then there's other series that we have that's like I have a like MCU type slate thing that I made in Canva because I'm not a Photoshop master, and I have a 3-issue series of my character, which you'll also see in the Seer Chronicles issue 3 that's coming out this year. It's like his origin story basically, but it obviously jumps in the second issue. I don't bore people. And then there's another one that's a character I really can't wait to do, but again, time, money. I hate my job. There's
there's also, was it
Silver?
Oh, I was gonna say Silva too.
Oh yeah, well yeah, there's that. But yes, so there's this one called Cyper, and I do have an artist for that, but like that's still like on hold. He's like our Arrow character, so it's pretty like brooding, and it has people in the comic that used to be like in that I knew, but like they died. Like they're based on people that I knew. So there's that, and then we have a one-shot comic that's within the Seer Chronicles. That's this one character that we mentioned in the second issue. He has like a big part in the second issue. He has like his own one-shot, like in a couple of comics from now. So
Very cool.
Yeah. And that's just like phase 1.
No, but I mean that's awesome because you're actually building the world up with all of this, and like you said, at least you're doing it the correct way and not the DC way because we know how that turned out. Anyway,
Here's a bunch of characters you don't like.
Yeah, I had to go there. I'm sorry. I mean, it happens. But you're at least doing it the right way, where you're doing the origins and getting the character names and their build up going out there before you throw them into a team, because a lot of times you get a team out there and people are looking at it going, I don't know who I should, be following on this. What's going on? What's their backgrounds with each other? I mean, it may seem like it's a pretty straightforward story, just throwing it down from the beginning, but there's a lot of people that look at it going, I want deeper into this. I want to know why they don't get along and why this one, goes ahead and tries to poison his food every time he turns around. There's different things that are in there. I mean, friends do that to each other.
Yeah, that's like, I was gonna say that's like a big thing that we did with one of our villains. Even like they're one of our like now favorite characters is somebody who was kind of supposed to be kind of a jerk, and then he would get killed, and you're like, oh, like that's it. And I even asked him, like, why do I care? Like that's uninteresting. So we decided to build out like a whole backstory to him, which is really like a huge part of our second issue of the Seer Chronicles, and it's just like it was very. It was a lot more interesting. It's kind of like why the Joker was interesting. It's just cool to see someone become a villain, knowing like, oh wow, like yeah, anybody can become corrupted.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it only takes so much to actually make someone snap. Just which way are they going to snap? That's what you never know.
Yeah.
Is the snap going to be a subtle snap, or is it going to be one where it's like, I'm going to go ahead and destroy the world with touch of a button? There's that kind of thing. That in no way was a presidential slur. Throwing that out there. Oh, I'm going to hell. Anyway, but I mean, if everyone that's watching this thing wants to go ahead and get involved in the world building on this and figure out what's going on from the ground floor, Seer Chronicles is out there, Mittens is out there, Scales is out there, and of course, right now you've got Ink 1 and 2. And you don't want to miss out on this one. And I'm fixing to give these guys full screen and tell you why you need to get over there and support in any way you possibly can right now.
Cool. Here you go. You go first.
Because we're awesome. Yeah. So if you like tattoos and magic, and it's kind of like Doctor Strange with like tattoos. So
it's an interesting way to put it. Yeah, a lot of the cool things that happen, all these they're basically like what do they call it in the Green Lantern? It's the light structures. I forgot what they're called. No, the things that they form, like the light, whatever they are. But you get it. But basically, it's an exciting world. We're looking to really build this out. The better this campaign does, like how we're talking about how we want these other comics to come out. Like the only thing hindering them and the speed of them is how much and how quickly these get funded. Basically, if we had an infinite supply of money, we've got an infinite supply of stories. Like, we were just talking about on the ride over here that I'm like, oh, what's that other story I had? I have like this horror comic I want to work on. Like there's so much that we want to work on, and Ink is definitely a really big part of that. It's one of my favorite characters. I know that even after our first issue was released, several people kept complaining after every Kickstarter, like, this isn't Ink 2. Like, they've been waiting for it for, a few years now. And we'd like to be able to speed these up. We'd like to be able to release them faster and get them into the hands of readers and fans. So, yeah, definitely you want to, where's my hand? There it is. You want to go there.
And the very cool thing is that you don't have to memorize the thing that's coming up there on the screen and everything. I've actually got the link embedded in the feeds. Very easy for you to go over there, click directly on, and go over there and find out. My shows have always been about the passion that is put into the projects that are out there are the ones that I really want to get involved with, have them on as guests, talk to them about and everything. Greg and Dylan, you are definitely no different in that aspect, that you definitely put all of your passion into your work that you're doing, and it shows in the work that you're producing. So I want to make sure that everyone's going over there and seeing what all Seernova has available over there. They don't need to miss out on this stuff. So again, I want to thank y'all for being here and for being my guest on the show and taking the time to be on here. I want to remind everyone, we have a main hashtag that we use on this show that I want to push, that I do on every single show, which is hashtag Power of the Finger, the correct one if you can. Hit that share button and get the shares out there, because not everyone can financially back everything that's out there. Everybody understands that there's not a creator that's out there that's going to point fingers saying, you should be, backing everything that's out there. However, it costs you absolutely nothing to use the power of that finger and hit that share button and get this shared out. Plus, you never know what eyes it's going to land in front of. That it could be just detrimental to making sure that this thing not only funds here, but it pushes other things to be built up later on. Maybe we won't have to wait a full 2 years for the next issue. If you get the right people involved in this, we might see it in a year or so. So we can push on that. We can do this. But power the finger, make sure you use that, and get over there to this campaign. Do not miss out on this thing before it's over with. And make sure whenever you do get on there and you do back them if you're able to, go ahead and go to the comments and comment as well. That actually triggers the algorithm. That's another little trick there. Just go ahead and put in comments, the demon sent you. That way they'll know that you actually saw this on here, and they know where it came from on there, and they can kind of track where it's going around. But gentlemen, I appreciate y'all being on here. It has been an honor having y'all on, being able to talk to you. Again, I apologize for all the inclement weather that we've had, including what's out there right now. It just kind of follows us around for some reason. But I do appreciate the patience on getting you on here. It has been well worth the wait. And I am definitely looking forward to seeing what all y'all have in the near future with more coming out of Seernova.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close this thing out for tonight. I get to say my favorite thing that I love saying after every single show I do. Keep it into y'all.